Hi everyone, and thank you very much for listening. Liam Hartley here today with another episode of Presenting Champions for the Simply Inspired podcast. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, teenage strongman sensation, Jack Wadman, who has been chasing his strongman dream since an early age, was already competing in his teenage years, still competing now. He's already achieved a lot so far in strongman, but I believe that the best is yet to come, which is one of the things we will be touching on today. As always, with my interviews, not only about sports itself, but also about the mindset and the discipline that it takes to achieve such a high level in one of the toughest sports in the world at such a young age. So, truly honored to have Jack on the show. But, mate, that's enough of me talking about you in third person. Thank you for coming on the show, and it's a real pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you.
No worries, happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, starting at the beginning, I mean, not so much literally the beginning when you were born, but certainly going back a few years. As I understand it, strongman was actually a family tradition in your family in terms of watching it and taking an interest in the sport. Is that what initially inspired you to enter the sport yourself?
No, not really, because well, we used to watch it all the time at Christmas, but I never thought when I was watching that I'd probably become a strongman. So it was actually when I went to a gym down south called South Coast Gym, where I was started lifting there, and a PT came over to me and said, "Oh, you got quite a strong deadlift. You should enter the local strongman comp we're putting on." And then from there, I met my coach, Rhiannon Lovelace, who's pound for pound strongest woman in the world, got about 13, 14 world records over multiple weight classes, and also Luke Davies, who was the first under 105 kilo strongman to pull 409 kilos, which is 900 pounds, which is pretty amazing. And then been with them for 4 years, coming on 4 years now, and the progress I've made with them from very novice to beating at the Arnold's UK stage, and also competing at the England Strongest Man qualifier last weekend. So it's pretty good progress.
Pretty good progress. Understatement of the year for that comment because you've made exceptional progress in well in a short space of time, which we'll come to. Am I correct in saying that your father had an interest in strongman or at least in weightlifting as well when you were growing up? I did read that somewhere, I think.
Yeah, so my dad's been lifting weights for 30 plus years, and he's kind of the person that got me into it to start with. So he built his own home gym when I was about 14, 15. I started lifting weights with him, and he introduced me all the correct form of how to lift weights properly. And then from there on, yeah, as I said before, I met Rhiannon, and then from there it's just gone crazy really with the progress I've made.
Absolutely, has definitely. And something that I'd like to touch on here as well is often when I, interview people on the show, there's a process that people go through from getting into a sport, whatever their sport is, obviously realizing they enjoy it, realizing they're good at it, but they often go through a process of realizing how far they can go, if that makes sense. So from starting with the initial, okay, I enjoy this, I'm good at this, I get some good feedback from it, to actually, I can take this a long way. What was the process like for you in terms of your expectations when you started versus obviously everything you've gone on to achieve in such a short time, if that makes sense?
Well, I really had no expectations. I mean, I really for my first strongman comp, I didn't really train any of the events. Literally jumped in straight in the deep end, and then from there on, because of the camaraderie through all the athletes and how nice it was on the day and how well run the comp was, I kind of fell in love that way. And then Rhiannon was so impressed with me, so she took me under her wing, and then she's just been progressing me linearly through different comps and different levels of comps. So yeah, it's been pretty amazing, to be fair.
Absolutely. Okay, so you sort of exceeded your expectations in a way. Yeah,
Yeah, massively. Yeah.
that's very cool. And as I also understand, and correct me if I'm wrong with this, but when I was researching this, I found somewhere that you were actually slightly underage for your first competition. I remember reading somewhere that you were like 15 and you have to be 16 or something.
Yeah, so the gym I was at, you probably shouldn't do this. I lied about my age to get a membership there. So I was actually 15 at the time, but you had to be 16 for for the gym, and because of that, I was pretty sure you had to be 16 to enter the competition. So yeah, I lied about my age. On the day I was 16, but I was actually 15 at the time. So it's
Yeah.
pretty funny that.
Yeah, it is funny, and it shows your drive, it shows your ambition. So that's why I think it's actually quite a cool thing. So with that in mind, obviously you're competing. If you need to check that it's all good if in case
No,
it's
it's all good. I'm just going to turn it off.
no worries. But yeah, obviously, competing at such a young age or getting into the sport when you're still in your teenage years, I'm curious what that was like for you from a sort of social aspect. What I mean by that is obviously a lot of people at like, 16, 17, whatever, they're focusing on, I don't know, passing their driving test, doing exams, whatever. You're focused on, getting into strongman, being the best you can be, etc. So what was the dynamic like with your mates and your friends and, in school? And everything from that side of it in terms of like the reaction from people in your community, basically.
I mean, the reaction I got was amazing because it was pretty much unheard of. So a 15-year-old kid doing strongman, but I just found that was what I like to do, and I didn't really like going out drinking, partying with my mates. Obviously I socialised with my mates, but probably not as much as other people did, as I was so focused on just improving and doing something I loved. So I didn't really see the point of going out partying, as I don't really enjoy it as much as I do lifting weights and improving all the elements that strongman has.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's incredible dedication. And I think it's quite inspirational for people as well, because obviously you were staying focused in that time when a lot of these distractions come up, don't they? I mean, it's a time when people can easily be led off track. So, you just kept that laser focus. It's not a question. I just saying, I think this is really cool.
Yeah.
So in terms of your actual training itself, walk us through a little bit about what you're doing on a daily basis, particularly what some of your favorite aspects of training are, please.
So I currently train 4 days a week, and they consist of one like accessory overhead day, then a deadlift day, then like a log axle overhead day, and then the events day. But probably my favourite events in strongman are the Atlas stones and like all the moving events, because I just love moving with heavyweight. Yeah, Atlas stones is probably my favourite overall, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, people watching this or listening to this who know all about strongman will know about the diet and stuff, but just putting a question in there for anyone who's not as familiar with that side of things, who just want to make sure we cater to both sides. Can you explain about how much you have to eat? Because from what I've heard on previous strongman interviews, it's insane to an average Joe.
Yeah,
Tell
so
us.
I have to eat about 6,000 calories a day to maintain the weight I currently have, and because of the job I have, it's a very physical job, so I have to keep eating, keep eating, keep eating, and yeah, some of the food I eat probably a lot of people wouldn't have, to be honest, as it is a bit, it's not the best, but it's what you've got to do to get the calories in, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely wild, no matter how many times I hear it.
Yeah.
And another thing to touch on here is obviously doing what you do. Obviously, it is all about the strength in your body. But I think to compete at the highest level, you have to have a strong mind as well, and you have to have the discipline, the focus, the belief that you will win and you will do well. So, how do you sort of mentally prepare when you're coming up on a competition and, prepare to sort of smash those goals? What's going through your mind on the build up and everything?
So backstage, before a competition, I'm very chill. But as soon as I put my mouth guard in, have my sipping salts, that's when I go into like berserker mode. So like nothing else matters. I'm just gonna go and lift this weight as many times as I can, as fast as I can, move with weight, and yeah, lift as heavy as I can. So yeah, just give it everything you've got really, and that's how I can just switch between mindset quite quickly. So one second I'm very chilled, then the next I literally, you don't want to go near me because yeah, I'm not a nice person to be around when I'm that psyched up for lifting that weight. But yeah, it's what you've got to do to lift the weights you've got to lift and get yourself into the fight or flight scenario. So to be able to lift these kind of weights, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And so you're very chilled out backstage. So you don't really feel any nerves or anything as such on the build up to a competition then?
Towards build up of competition, like the day before, I am very very nervous. Like yeah, I can't sleep very well, and because I'm just thinking of all the scenarios in my head, all about the competition, and I am very nervous. But as soon as I get to the arena, I'm fine. So like they die down when I meet all the competitors and stuff like that. And as soon as the first fence is out of the way, I'm probably the chillest person to ever meet behind stage, which is good.
Yeah, it is good. It makes a lot of sense. And like I say, I appreciate you being, brutally honest about that, mainly because obviously a big part of what I do with these interviews is about inspiration and things anyway. So it shows that even someone who's reaching the high levels like you, obviously they're still going through human emotions, obviously, and sort of how you manage those. So I think that's my reason for asking that as well. So obviously, out of your achievements so far, um, rather than walking through it everyone individually, what I am going to do is look at it a different way and look at which ones you are personally most proud of, and so your favorite achievements out of what you've achieved so far. The best is yet to come, I think, so we'll talk about that some more. But in terms of what you've achieved so far, which ones are your favorite and why, please?
So probably the my favourite one was competing at the Arnold UK Log and Deadlift World Championships in 2020 or 21 in Birmingham, because I was in front of like 4,000 people, and I was the youngest there. I was only 18 years old, and I just thought that was amazing to be there at such a young age. Another one would be lifting over a 200 kilo atlas stone at 17 years old, because I'm pretty sure I was the first person in history to lift that weight at 17, but it wasn't. But there's no like records or stuff for teenagers in strongman, so it is very hard to find data. But my coach has a lot of people, and she believes I was the first teenager or 17-year-old to lift that weight on the atlas stone. So that's, and then also coming 12th place at the England Strongest Man qualifier last weekend is probably the highlight this year, or if not the highlight from the past 2 years, as I came 12th place there, bang slap bang in the middle, in amongst the best in England, and I was the youngest by 5 years as well. So yeah, it was really good last week.
Wow, amazing achievement. Well done. Absolutely incredible. And a couple of other things to touch on there. Obviously, when you're competing and training and everything else, I also want to talk about your time, because obviously your sport takes a massive amount of dedication. But you mentioned earlier that you're also working, and I don't know if you're studying or if you're doing anything else. But in terms of like your time sort of management, how do you fit everything in? I think that'll be interesting for
So
people.
I'm very lucky with where I work, because it's not just a 9 to 5 job. So one day I'll be doing 2 to 10:30, so I can do training before that. One day I'll be on the early, so it's 6:15 till 12:15, and I can train after that. And then I have 1 or 2 days off in the week, and then I'll work all the weekends, because I'd rather have a day off in the week to really focus on my training than do it that and work in the week, work at the weekend, so I can have that day of training basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I work 5 days a week, but it does help having the lates and the earlies, because you can train before work and after work as well.
That's good, that you can adapt it around that. Fair play. So another thing I think people will find interesting here as well, is just to touch on very briefly, and then we'll sort of get to a few future things. But obviously, with your sport, you have to push through pain barriers and things. I mean, that's common sense. And just going back to the mindset thing that you said about earlier, it was something that I think people will be interested to know how you sort of push through a pain barrier. And I know you mentioned about going into berserker mode. This is going to tie into what what you just said, but just
Yeah.
furthering that a little bit more. How do you push through that level of physical or mental pain in those moments? It seems superhuman to the rest of us, but you obviously have a way of pushing through that.
Yeah, so basically nothing else in the world matters apart from finishing that medley, lifting that weight, and yeah, and if I don't do it, you don't want to come near me, because I will not be a nice person to be around. But if I do get it, it'll be good. But yeah, it flips really. So if I, as I said before, if I lift that weight, it'll have a massive sigh of relief, and then if I don't get the weight, then it'll just be a massive shock of anger. So because at that state, my emotions are so heightened. So if I do get it, it'll be a very good emotion. But if I don't get it, it'll be a very bad emotion. So yeah, so it swings and roundabouts really.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating. It is fascinating because obviously other people watching this who compete, they'll understand that. But for the people who are watching, obviously it gives them a deeper insight into what they don't see, if that makes sense, because they don't obviously see what's in your mind and in your heart. So that's very cool. What was the other thing? Oh, the other thing I meant to ask you was you've also been getting a lot of exposure, obviously with what you're doing. And I've seen that Lad Bible and some of the interviews you've done, and I think there was one, were they German or there was a TV company? There was some
Yeah.
things going on there. So in terms of like your thoughts on becoming quite famous, quite well known, recognized, respected, however you look at it. Your thoughts on what that means to you and what that experience is like would be cool to touch on as well.
I mean, it's amazing for people to come up to you in the gym and at competitions, wanting your photo. It really means the world because I'm just doing what I do, and for people to really appreciate it means the world, really. So yeah, it does feel amazing when someone wants your picture just for doing what you do, basically.
Yeah.
When you feel like it's not as good as it. Well, you don't think it's that good at the moment, but you want to get to the places you are. People already think it's amazing. It does mean the world.
Absolutely. And one of the videos, I think, I can't remember the exact number actually, but I think it was like over 2 million views or something that it
Yeah.
had when I was reading up on this. So what, when you saw that, because you've given a nice mention to people coming up to you in sort of real life, if you like, when you also look at your internet presence now, how do you feel about that? Is it something that you have to sort of get used to, and you have to let it sink in over time and that type of thing?
Yeah, definitely, because it was a bit overwhelming when it first happened about the amount of exposure I was getting. ITV News interviewed me and stuff like that. So it all came at once. But yeah, so if I do get like a nice comment on my post, I do try and respond and say thank you, stuff like that. So from the English qualifier last week, I put a post out, and like, the amount of amazing comments I got, I just said thank you, thank you, thank you to all of them because it does. I mean, it takes time out of their day to write that comment, so I feel like it would be right to say thank you at least for the nice comment.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I love that, because you're obviously a very down-to-earth individual. And the thing is, when you're an athlete at your level, you're a role model to a lot of people. So how you conduct yourself, is a very important thing. And you always conduct yourself wonderfully. So, it's cool. Brilliant. Okay, so we'll look at the future now. One more question about this. It's not really about the past, but it's more general for people watching. If there are people watching this who want to achieve a big life goal. Now, I'm not going to narrow this down just to people who want to compete in strongman, although that's certainly worth mentioning. But I think obviously some of the life lessons you've shared, they apply to any goal that somebody wants to smash, basically. So somebody watching this, they're thinking, okay, I want to achieve something big. What would be one or two key pieces of advice that you'd give them? I know this is quite a big question, but just one or two things that you regard to be essential to succeed at something you love, basically.
Yeah, so the first thing I would say to people is if you really want to achieve something good, there's always going to be people that say you can't, that try and knock you down, that just say you can't, this, that, and the other. You just really got to drown them out and just really focus on your path and the route you know you're going to get there. So it doesn't matter what these people say. They're just bumps in the road that you just got to get by to get to where you are. And another thing is always always take oh, always take tips and guidance from anyone because any guidance is good guidance. So and what guidance someone gives you, even if you don't agree with it, still take it on board and still try and learn from what everyone tells you. So they're probably the two main things I would say, and probably the main two things that have helped me so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. I mean, like I said to you, it's a big part of the reason why I do these is not just to talk about sports, but to give people that hope and inspiration and show people that, anything is possible, really. You have to put the work in, you have to believe, you have to work with the right people and everything, but it is possible. So really appreciate you sharing that, and I hope it lifts some people up. So looking to the future as well, obviously, your future plans are big. I've read interviews where you said about a number of these, everything from owning your own gym, being on TV. There's a lot of things, obviously, but in your own words, can you share with us a little bit about your future plans, as far ahead as you'd like to go or as close to where we are? I really don't mind, but just your future in your own words, please.
Yeah, so the main goal, well, the first step is to get to Giants Live. And for anyone that doesn't know what Giants Live is the qualifying arena shows all around the UK that if you get top three there at one of them shows, you get an automatic invite to World's Strongest Man, which is a pinnacle of strongman. And once you get to Giants Live, I want to then get to World's Strongest Man and then hopefully get to the final and one day get a podium and if not win it. So they're probably the two main goals so far. I've got. And then also, as you said before, I would love to own my own gym, run my own business, and have do personal training out of that gym as well. So they're probably the main three goals I've got for the future.
Absolutely. And what I'll say, I tell you what, when you're further down the road and you're in Giants Live or you're in the World's Strongest Man or whatever, we'll have to catch up again and do another one of these and update everyone on what's been happening. In the meantime, though, also you mentioned obviously your coaches, the people who've helped you earlier. I'd like to just take this opportunity to see if there's anyone you'd like to give a shout out to, because we've been honed in very much on your achievements, but if it's people you train with, if it's like your family supporting you with your schedule. I mean, I don't know really. It can come in different forms, but just anyone you'd like to mention who's helped you along the way, basically.
Yeah, so probably the whole Chaos Strength team. So that's Luke Davies, Rhiannon Lovelace, and everyone that they coach, because they've been so helpful towards me and encouraging me, giving me guidance all through the four years I've been with them, and also my mum and dad as well, because they drive me all up and down the country. They feed me, which isn't cheap, and they also help me with my training. And so without all of them, I probably wouldn't be anywhere near where I am now. So a massive thank you to them.
Absolutely. Well, we've talked about some good things today. Like I said, you're doing absolutely amazing on the journey so far, but the best is yet to come. The future is very, very bright. So the last thing for me to do is just to say a big thank you for your time, big thank you for coming on the show, and big thank you for being an open book, really, and sharing all of this about your life. So thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.